Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, 2023 is over. And compared to previous years, 2023 wasn't that crazy. However, there were still a lot of big things that happened this past year, especially in the financial world. And so as 2023 has come to an end, I think we should stop and reflect on some of the major events that happened this past year and the lessons we can learn from those events. And so in this video, I want to share 10 lessons from 2023 that you shouldn't forget as we enter 2024. And the first lesson is that nobody can predict the future. So let's start our journey off a little bit before 2023, on December 2022. Now, 2022 wasn't one of the best years. Inflation had been high for the last couple of years. The stock market had lost 18%, and interest rates were high. And because of that, everyone started to talk about how in 2023, there's going to be a recession. And we saw video after video, article after article, and news story after news story about this upcoming recession in 2023. And here we are at the end of 2023. And are people struggling financially? Yes. Are people looking for jobs? Yes. But did we have a recession in 2023? I don't think so. Things have actually been looking pretty good this past year. I mean, unemployment is at pre-pandemic levels. Inflation has cooled down, and the stock market has increased by about 25% this year. Things are not as bad as people said they were going to be. And I think the lesson to be learned in this is that nobody can predict the future. Not me, not Hermione, not you.
No, you can't! There must be another way!
Not even financial experts can predict the future. And so we shouldn't worry and get consumed in all the bad things that can happen in the future because it ends up just being a waste. Now, the second lesson is trends are neither true nor important. They are just popular. Being a content creator these last 2 years has really opened my eyes on how the media works. And something that I think that is very dangerous in this field, that can distort people's view of what's going on, is trends. The topics that reach a really broad audience. And the reason that I think they're dangerous is because something becomes trending, not because it's true or important, but because it captures the attention of a broad audience. And as a content creator, I've just become hyper aware of trends and how they form and how they can distort our view of reality. For example, first, a broad topic like the 2023 recession appears that intrigues a lot of people. Next, some creators start to experiment with this topic and get a big reach. Then, other creators start to notice the results and make videos on the topic. Then, everyone starts to notice the success of the topic. And finally, the topic becomes trending. When everyone's talking about a similar topic, it is because that topic gets an extremely broad reach, and as content creators, it's almost a surefire way to appeal to a broader audience and get more views than normal. There's a quote that goes, "If everyone is thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking." Sometimes we can get consumed with these trending topics like the 2023 recession, that it distorts our view of reality, of what actually is going on, because we see so many people talking about the exact same thing. And that can cause us to make bad decisions. And I think the lesson to be learned in this is that trends are neither true nor important. They're just popular. They're topics that appeal to a broad audience, and we should be careful when we consume too much of that content. Now, the third lesson is buy and hold is a profitable investment strategy. When you look at the stock market post-COVID, it's been pretty volatile. I mean, we had a huge crash once COVID started, then an illogical bull run in 2021, then a large drop in 2022, and then a recovery in 2023. It's been a bumpy ride, but the truth is, if you bought index funds the month before the COVID crash, on March 2022, a month later, your investments would be down 20%. Which is a hard thing to stomach. But if you decided not to sell, by the end of the year, your investment would be up 12%. And if you decide to continue, the next year, your investment would be up 42%. But then the following year, your investment would drop by 23%, but still be up 19%. And if you still held in October 2023, your investment would be up 30%. Despite how crazy the last few years have been, if you invested your money right before all the craziness of the pandemic, you'd still be profiting today. All you'd have to do is buy and hold. People lose money in the stock market when they panic and sell their stocks at a losing price. And I think the lesson to be learned in this is that buying and holding in the long term is a profitable investment strategy. And if you're patient and allow your investments to grow over time, more than likely you will make a profit. Now, the fourth lesson is that day-to-day stuff doesn't matter. The problem that people have with investing and just life in general is they get so consumed in the day-to-day things. I mean, since COVID, we've had the lockdowns, a new president, all-time high inflation, wars, potential government shutdowns, a housing rush, an ousted House Speaker, Chinese balloons, George Santos. And the list goes on and on. And these stories affect the stock market on a daily basis. I mean, on a daily basis, the stock market looks like this: up and down and up and down. However, if you zoom out and see the big picture, you realize that none of this day-to-day stuff matters, because over time, the stock market always goes up. Despite all the chaos that happens in between, you're better off investing your money in the stock market than not. And so the lesson in this is that day-to-day stuff doesn't matter with investing. Day-to-day stuff is chaotic and interesting, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because in the long term, the market always goes up. Now, the fifth lesson is public images are crafted to deceive you. Probably the biggest story in the space of finance in 2023 was FTX declaring bankruptcy and Sam Bankman-Fried found guilty. However, before all this stuff happened, Sam Bankman-Fried had a very carefully crafted public image where he had crazy hair, he drives a Toyota Corolla, and he makes his money so he can give it away. He was viewed as this Robin Hood figure of taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. And because of that image, many people trusted him with their money. However, as I said, FTX declared bankruptcy due to mismanaged funds. And people lost their entire life savings. And I think the lesson to be learned in this is to always be leery of public figures. Influential people like Sam Bankman-Fried carefully craft their public image to get you to trust them. So if somebody's trying to convince you that they're a good person, they probably have ulterior motives. Now, the next lesson is only put your money in an FDIC insured place. The thing that made FTX such a disaster that resulted in people losing their life savings was not that it declared bankruptcy. I mean, banks failing is not really an uncommon thing. According to the FDIC, in 2023, 5 banks failed, and in 2020, 4 banks failed. The thing that made FTX such a disaster was that it wasn't insured by the FDIC. Meaning, if the platform fails, there is no guarantee that the customers will get their money back. And when it did fail, the FDIC did not insure anybody's deposit. And the lesson to be learned in this is to only put your money in a place that is insured by the FDIC, a place where you see this logo, meaning the federal government insures deposits up to $250,000. Because if the bank that's holding your money does fail, you don't have to worry about losing your money. Now, the 7th lesson is keep your accounts under the $250,000 limit. So this next lesson is probably something that nobody watching this has to worry about. But as I said, the FDIC insures depositors up to $250,000. So if you have $300,000 with a bank, they will only cover $250,000 and you lose the other $50,000. Anything beyond $250,000 is technically not insured by the FDIC. And another big story in the finance space this year was the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank. And many people who had money with them were businesses that had more than $250,000. And people panicked and tried to withdraw $42 billion in one day. And because there was so much money in the bank, the FDIC came in and nobody lost their deposits, even over $250,000. But the lesson to be learned in this is to never keep your account above the $250,000 limit or you risk losing money. And I think if this bank failure impacted individuals instead of corporations, it would have been a completely different story and people would have lost their money because, the welfare of corporations is much more important than the welfare of individuals. Us individuals need to pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps. So stay below that $250,000 limit. Now, the 8th lesson is you need to change with the world. Probably the biggest story of 2023 was the rise of AI and the release of ChatGPT. And hearing all this talk about AI is a scary thing because it threatens so many jobs. According to Goldman Sachs, AI could replace over 300 million jobs. And as crazy as this sounds, technology replacing jobs is nothing new. For example, 100 years ago, farming was a huge field that people worked in. But in the second agricultural revolution, many farming jobs became obsolete. There wasn't that much work to do in farming anymore. And how did people respond to this? Well, they moved to cities and got jobs in manufacturing. They were forced to change with the world. And I think the story of AI will be similar. I think we're just going to have to adjust. I don't think that humans will ever become obsolete, but we'll just start doing new things. And I think that the lesson to be learned in all this talk about AI is that you need to change with the world. You need to educate yourself and adjust your mindset on certain things so that you don't become obsolete. Now, the 9th lesson is be grateful for what you have. I don't like to talk about politics or anything that could trigger somebody in my channel because I find that it attracts all these weird people. And I'd rather not have these weird conspiracy theorists come to my channel and make comments. But this last year has been pretty crazy. There's been the war in Ukraine, the Israel-Palestine conflict, and even the continued crisis in Venezuela. When I was living in Ecuador, I saw the hardship that the Venezuelans go through, but most people aren't even aware of what's going on in Venezuela because there's no news that gets reported on it. The media picks and chooses what we should be talking about. But the world is crazy, and unfortunately, human beings have trouble getting along. And I think that it's important, if you're from a more peaceful area in the world that doesn't have all these conflicts, to be grateful for what you have in life. Even if your life isn't perfect, you are probably much better off than most people in this world. And I think the lesson out of all these conflicts is just to be grateful for what you have in life because things could be a lot worse. Now, the final lesson is everything eventually passes. Whenever I get worried about all the crazy things going on in the world, I like to listen to the song "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Billy Joel. And if you've never heard the song, then give it a listen. But basically, he goes through all the crazy events that happened from the time he was born to the time that he's 40 years old. And in the song, he talks about Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Whitcher, Joe DiMaggio, Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker Television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe. And the message of the song is, we didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. The world has been crazy this year and the past few years, but the truth is, the world has always been crazy. There's never really been a moment when things are just fine and dandy, because we humans are dramatic creatures. And I think the lesson to be learned in this crazy world is to not get consumed in it, because when you do, you panic, you get stressed out, and you make bad decisions, and instead, just focus on your small space in the world and not worry about all this crazy stuff, because in the end, it always seems to find a way of working out. And with that, muchas gracias, que tengan un buen día, nos vemos chicos.